God's love. He wants to be part of a church where he can have his own issues and problems and where people are functioning in healthy, honest relationships with each other and God. My daughter comes home from her first week at a new school. "Guess what, Mom?" she says. "We're reading a meditation each day in homeroom class from your book, The Language of Letting Go. And at my friend's school, they're talking about codependency issues in health class." Codependent No More, with a picture of handcuffs broken apart on the front cover, makes the bestseller list in France. Cat-Dependent No More, parodying the title of my book, makes the 1991 Christmas book list here in Minnesota. Some things have changed. I've written 4 more books, traveled the world, divorced but not remarried, and paid back the welfare department for the financial help they gave me. I feel more passionately about the importance of healing from our abuse issues. I feel more passionately. I've become more spontaneous, embraced my femininity, and learned new lessons along the way about boundaries, flexibility, and owning my power. And about love. I'm learning to respect men. My relationships have deepened. Some have changed. The most significant change in my life has been the loss of my son, Shane. As you may have heard or read, in February of 1991, 3 days after his 12th birthday, my beloved Shane, so much a part of my life and work, was killed suddenly in a ski accident on the slopes at Afton Alps. I'm learning about death and life. I've grown and changed. I've watched my friends grow and change. Many of you have written to me about your growth and change. I still struggle with feeling feelings and trusting my process, my path, and my higher power. I still feel afraid at times. Sometimes I forget and try to control everything. I may become obsessive unless I catch myself. And despite its years on the bestseller list, the most common question I'm still asked by people and the media is, just exactly what is codependency? Some things haven't changed, at least not a lot. I still refuse to be an expert and permanently decline the title of guru, but I'm still willing to tell you what I see and believe. Although some things appear not to have changed, things are constantly changing. Our consciousness, as individuals and as a society, has been raised. We've realized that women have souls and men have feelings. And I've gone deeper into my healing process than I ever intended. I don't know how much my writing has contributed to this consciousness raising and how much the consciousness raising has contributed to my writing, but I'm grateful to be part of what's happened. I'm honored to be part of a movement influenced by people such as Ann Wilson Schaaf, John Bradshaw, Patrick Carnes, Ernie Larson, and led by people such as you, my readers, the real heroes, quietly and profoundly doing your own healing work and carrying the message to others, most significantly by example. I've met many of you in my travels across the country. Some of you have written to me. Thank you for the love, support, and compassion you've shown me, not only over the years, but throughout the rough, raw months of 1991 after Shane's death. Many of you have written to me saying how much I've helped you. Well, you've helped and touched me, too. One woman wrote to me recently saying she had read all my books and had been recovering from codependency for years. "I want to learn more, though," she wrote. "I want to go deeper into my codependency. Please write more about that." Maybe we don't need to go deeper into our codependency. We can instead march forward into our destinies. We can remember and practice all we've learned about addictions, codependency, and abuse. With compassion and boundaries, we need to commit fully to loving God, ourselves, and others. We need to commit fully to trusting God, ourselves, and our process. Then we can be open to the next step. We are on time, and we are where we need to be. We can be trusted. So can God. And letting go and gratitude still work. Keep your head up and your heart open, and let's see what's next. Happy 5-year anniversary. Codependent no more. Melody Beattie. Introduction. My first encounter with codependence occurred in the early 60s. This was before people tormented by other people's behavior were called codependents, and before people addicted to alcohol and other drugs were labeled chemically dependent. Although I didn't know what codependents were, I usually knew who they were. As an alcoholic and addict, I stormed through life, helping create other codependents. Codependents were a necessary nuisance. They were hostile, controlling, manipulative, indirect, guilt-producing, difficult to communicate with, generally disagreeable, sometimes downright hateful, and a hindrance to my compulsion to get high. They hollered at me, hid my pills, made nasty faces at me, poured my alcohol down the sink, tried to keep me from getting more drugs, wanted to know why I was doing this to them, and asked what was wrong with me. But they were always there, ready to rescue me from self-created disasters. The codependents in my life didn't understand me, and the misunderstanding was mutual. I didn't understand me, and I didn't understand them. My first professional encounter with codependence occurred years later, in 1976. At that time in Minnesota, addicts and alcoholics had become chemically dependent. Their families and friends had become significant others, and I had become a recovering addict and alcoholic. By then, I also worked as a counselor in the chemical dependency field, that vast network of institutions, programs, and agencies that helps chemically dependent people get well. Because I'm a woman, and most of the significant others at that time were women, and because I had the least seniority and none of my coworkers wanted to do it, my employer at the Minneapolis Treatment Center told me to organize support groups for wives of addicts in the program. I wasn't prepared for this task. I still found codependence hostile, controlling, manipulative, indirect, guilt-producing, difficult to communicate with, and more. In my group, I saw people who felt responsible for the entire world, but they refused to take responsibility for leading and living their own lives. I saw people who constantly gave to others, but didn't know how to receive. I saw people give until they were angry, exhausted, and emptied of everything. I saw some give until they gave up. I even saw one woman give and suffer so much that she died of old age and natural causes at age 33. She was the mother of 5 children and the wife of an alcoholic who had been sent to prison for the 3rd time. I worked with women who were experts at taking care of everyone around them, yet these women doubted their ability to take care of themselves. I saw mere shells of people racing mindlessly from one activity to another. I saw people-pleasers, martyrs, stoics, tyrants, withering vines, clinging vines, and, borrowing from H. Sackler's line in his play The Great White Hope, pinched-up faces giving off the miseries. Most codependents were obsessed with other people. With great precision and detail, they could recite long lists of the addict's deeds and misdeeds, what he or she thought, felt, did, and said, and what he or she didn't think, feel, do, and say. The codependents knew what the alcoholic or addict should and shouldn't do, and they wondered extensively why he or she did or didn't do it. Yet these codependents, who had such great insights into others, couldn't see themselves. They didn't know what they were feeling. They weren't sure what they thought. And they didn't know what, if anything, they could do to solve their problems, if indeed they had any problems other than the alcoholics. It was a formidable group, these codependents. They were aching, complaining, and trying to control everyone and everything but themselves. And, except for a few quiet pioneers in family therapy, many counselors, including me, didn't know how to help them. The chemical dependency field was flourishing, but help focused on the addict. Literature and training on family therapy were scarce. What did codependents need? What did they want? Weren't